This is a quick review of the Mark of the Unicorn Motu A28ES. That's it right there. And this is my setup. So I'm running the A28ES via Thunderbolt into my late 2013 iMac. And I have a Pro Tools setup. I'm running Pro Tools 11. And then I have, I'm coming out of the A28ES via light pipe into this PreSonus Digimax FS. Then I'm running the Fractal Audio AXFX into two of the analog ends on the A28ES. Then I have a Daking 2-channel preamp going into another two of the analog ends of the 828. And then I have a Daking 4 going into 4 of the analog ends of the 828. And then I have the Joe Meek Twin Q2, which is going in via SPDIF, so that gives me additional 2 channels onto the SPDIF inputs. And then I have a word clock cable that is connected between the PreSonus Digimax FS that's running into that Twin Q2. And then I have the DBX 160A, which I'm using for compressors, going into the Daking. So, what do I show you here? Because I'll show you the Motu software, and I'll just give you my overall impressions. I am running, just for reference, Mac OS High Sierra, and I think that's important to note because I was coming off of a Digi 002 rack, which I had modified by Blackline Audio as a signature mod. I actually kept that unit, it's great, but I needed something new, and I wanted to utilize the Thunderbolt capability of the Thunderbolt imports of this 27-inch late 2013 iMac. I know it's an old computer, right? But it's Intel based and it's still running great, and I'm running Pro Tools 11 on this. It was working via the 002, but the 002 I was having to run in through this FireWire input on this Belkin Thunderbolt extension, and I had some issues with the hardware in the 002 where the phantom power switch wasn't working anymore, so I had to permanently set that phantom power switch on the 002 DigiDesign rack. So I was just like, you know what, let me keep that rack and just put it in a different room, and let's just get up to date and actually utilize the Thunderbolt capabilities of the Mac that I have. So what you're seeing is the Motu software, and this runs actually via the web browser. So for anyone that's interested, I'm running 48 kilohertz. I'm not doing anything higher than that because I am using the light pipe via ADAT for that PreSonus Digimax FS. I need a lot of inputs because I'm tracking a lot of drums, and so I've got something like 14 drum channels coming in at any given moment, and then I need additional inputs for things like bass and for that Fractal AXFX. So again, you can see my setup here. If it's similar to yours, it might be helpful for you to see. But yeah, so what's cool about the A28ES is, first of all, I'm coming from the 002 rack, which is obviously super old, but I did have that modified by Blackline Audio. I had the signature mod, and it sounded amazing. My biggest hesitation in upgrading to this Motu was that I was afraid that the conversion wasn't going to be up to par. Well, that's not true at all, as it turns out. I knew I could return the A28ES if it didn't work out, but I did a ton of research, and after doing that research, on paper, everything on the A28ES seemed like, you know, it was going to sound great. And some of the folks that I followed on YouTube who I have a high amount of respect for, that are pros in the industry, had really great things to say about the Motu, the newer stuff like the A28ES. So I figured, what do I have to lose here? Worst case scenario, I'll just return it to Sweetwater if it doesn't sound good. Well, it sounded amazing. So yeah, the converters on it are incredible. The best way to describe it would be, it sounds as good as the 002 Signature Blackline Audio, that Digi-Design rack that I used to have, which I did keep. It's not worse than that. It might even be ever so slightly better to my ear. So yeah, I'm running the KRK subwoofer, and I'm running these KRK. My monitoring is the RP5. I've got a pretty well treated room in here, and yeah, that was my biggest hesitation: is am I going to beat the 002 Signature mod? I even thought about upgrading the 002, but Blackline Audio no longer offers those mods, so it wasn't going to be an option to send that 002 back to have it repaired and or upgraded to the higher mod above the Signature. So I'm like, all right, the 002 is end of life. I'm gonna have to bite the bullet here. And the great thing about the Motu is, first of all, it only takes it only takes one rack unit space. It doesn't take two like the 002. Second of all, what's great about it is it has all the analog inputs that I need for my outboard pre's. It basically has everything that the 002 had, but in addition, what it has is it only has two preamps here. So two built-in preamps, but then it has 8 analog inputs on the back, which is a huge deal because, again, I've got the Daking 4, so I've got 4 channels going analog there, and then I've got this the Daking 2, which is the same thing as the 4, but it's 2 inputs. So I've got 6 preamps outboard there that I'm running in through the analog ends of this of the 828ES. So that's a big deal because then I also have the Fractal Axe Effects, which is stereo when I'm running analog out of that into 2 of the additional inputs on the 828ES. So bottom line is, the 828ES kind of had a little bit of everything that I needed. It was just a matter of, is this thing going to sound good? And it does. Another thing I would note is it does have 2 headphone outputs. I don't actually need that because I'm running an external 4-channel headphone amplifier output through this mixer here that I'm using to kind of control everything. So I didn't need that, but that's cool for you if you just only need 2 headphone outputs. And what else? It's got really awesome routing capabilities through the software, which is really impressive. It's like, I have to admit, it took a little bit of time for me to correctly set this up. There's a little bit of a learning curve here. So just be forewarned. This web-based interface that they have for all the routing of the unit, it's extremely powerful, but there's a little bit of a learning curve to it. But that wasn't a big issue for me, quite honestly. I was able to figure it out fairly easily with some trial and error. And it's really powerful stuff. I do have to admit, I'm not using any of the DSP capabilities of this thing yet. That's a whole other capability of this unit that I haven't even tapped into. And I'm also not using this touch console. Apparently you're able to control this remotely from an iPad. That, to me, is a really cool feature I haven't even tried using yet. I've only had the unit for about a month so far, and I actually have a drum room in here where I have a TV coming out of my Mac. So when I'm in the drum room, I can see an additional display coming out of my iMac. So, and I've got like a Bluetooth mouse in there, so I can control everything there. But the fact that this unit allows me to control it via an iPad, it's actually a big deal. I haven't even tapped into that capability yet. What else can I say about this? You do have to update the firmware via an Ethernet cable, which is kind of weird. But the Ethernet cable, you actually connect that between your computer and the unit itself. There's an Ethernet jack on the back of the A28ES that goes into the Ethernet on port on your computer, and then you can update that. So I believe I actually did update the firmware on this that way, and I just have an Ethernet cape. It's not on this, but it's on the back of the actual iMac. I just have that cable permanently attached so that if I ever need to update that, I can do that. So far so good. I have not had any issues. I bought it through Sweetwater, so I don't know. This was a leap of faith for me to update this. I had been using that 002 rack since probably two years after the 002 rack came out. I used the 002 rack for, I don't know, 3 years or so, and then Blackline Audio was a big deal, so I'd had them do the tweak head mod. That had a huge improvement, so then I had them do the signature mod, and it was just a nice situation with that, because anytime I would send it in to have them mod that unit, they would do maintenance on it and it would have an additional warranty. But then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've got Thunderbolt on my Mac and I'm not even utilizing the bandwidth capabilities of that, and I'm running through a Firewire adapter into this thing, which worked fine, but eventually stuff's gonna break on that 002, and they don't support that anymore at Blackline Audio, modding that unit, unfortunately. So, like I said, that unit that I have, that 002, it's up in a different room. It has, the headphone jack doesn't work properly, but I'm using the outputs on the back into like a headphone amp, so I don't even need the headphone jack on the 002. And then, like I said, the phantom power switch broke on it, the built-in preamps on the 002. So I just opened it up and I was able to actually permanently get that switch pushed in. So believe it or not, I'm still not going to be throwing away that 002. And I bought another Digimax FX for like $150 on eBay that I'm going to have in a different, larger room for drum tracking. But yeah, all right, so let's just cut to the chase. Like this A28ES, it's really, really good. I would recommend this if you have like the outboard preamps like I do, and you're looking to upgrade, because, you know, again, it only has 2 built-in preamps on the A28. I'm actually not even using those right now, but I did test them for overheads on the drums, and they actually sounded awesome. They sounded exactly the same as the modded preamps on the 002, the Blackline Audio 002 signature. But I didn't do a ton of testing there, but bottom line is those are 2 really good usable preamp channels there that I just have as spares right now, because I don't really need them, but they're nice because they do have the input combi jacks, so like I could unplug those XLRs that are running into my Snake in the other room, and I could just, if I had some guys coming over and we're jamming and have like a second guitar player, they could just plug right into that in the front, or a bass player or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think the powerful thing about this setup is I've got the Daking pre's, which are really, really good. I'm running vocals and bass through there, and then I have my kick drum and my snare. And then I've got additional snare channels running through the Joe Meek. Those are transformer-based inputs. And I've got EQ on those built in. And then I've got the compression running in for the vocals. And then I have the fractal XFX for 2 channels going to analog ends. And then I've got tons of drum channels left. Like I'm running 14 drum channel inputs. So yeah, anyway, long video, but yeah, I'm gonna give this thing like a 10 out of 10. Hopefully, as long as it's reliable and I don't have any issues with reliability. I mean, there's a warranty, obviously, but for what I paid for this, which I think was $900 on Sweetwater, this 828 Motu ES, it's awesome. Go for it. Don't even hesitate. I know there's a lot of other options where you can spend a lot more money on, like, you know, I was looking at like the Apogee or like the Universal Audio. What else was I looking at? I guess those were the two. Presonus has some things too, but it didn't have quite the I/O that I needed. Yeah, don't even hesitate. Like, pick this up if you're like have a similar setup to me, and no looking back. I will just caveat, I've not tried this with USB 2. That is another amazing feature of this thing, though, is that it supports not only Thunderbolt, which again I'm running into the iMac directly from the back of the unit. It also supports USB 2. So like if I ever decide I want to go to like a Windows setup, or if I want to plug this thing into a Windows machine via USB, you know, or if I want to just run it USB for whatever reason through my Mac, I can do that too. So yeah, very, very happy with this, and definitely check out the Motu 828 ES.